Not Buzz Aldrin. We are fortunate that we are surrounded by heroes, because I also would include the Navajo Code Talkers.
In recent years, the Navajo Code Talkers have become a familiar sight at special events. In their gold shirts and turquoise jewelry, they raise the flag at dedication ceremonies, and they're honored in parades. The Navajo Code Talkers today are credited with helping the United States win the battle for the Pacific in World War II. But it all started very simply. Shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Navajos who were fluent in both Navajo and English were recruited from boarding schools and communities throughout the reservation to join the U.S. Marine Corps. Carl Gorman was working in Window Rock.
And in 42, one day we heard over the radio that they wanted 30 Navajos for special duty.
Merril Sandoval was only 17 when he volunteered.
We just figured that they were taking us into the Marine Corps and everybody wanted to go. As, you know, in that time when the attack was so sudden.
Joe Kellwood was 21 and working at the Army Ammunition Depot near Flagstaff.
I want to be one, you know, the best fighting man the United States have.
Sam Billison had just graduated from high school in 1943.
Well, in those days, they used to have captions in the newspaper and radio that the few, the brave, the Marines, and I really wanted to be one of those.
And we didn't know we were going to be code talkers, you know what I mean? Myself, I just put in for scout anything, you know, when I enlist.
After boot camp, young Navajo recruits were sent to Camp Pendleton, the U.S. Marine training base near San Diego. There they attended a special school.
At the time I was transferred there was over 200 Navajos in one barrack. And we found out they had a school there that we had to attend. But they didn't tell us what for. Until we got into the classroom, that's when we found out. And when we got in, there was a whole bunch of Navajos in there, in classes. They told us that they were going to use our language to go into communication for the Marine Corps.
Billison was disappointed when he arrived.
I just came from the reservation. I don't want to be with these Navajos. I want to be with the Marines. But we got there, registered, and started the program, and it got real interesting, so I stayed with it.
The first group of 29 used the Navajo language to devise a communication code. They created a dictionary using Navajo words as letters of the alphabet and for military terms.
We coded the alphabet from A to Z. And then we start coding a lot of the war material. So we had about around 300 war material that was named or coded.
We had to learn English in military terms, military equipment, military rank, no Navajo word for grenade, artillery, dive bomber, aircraft carrier.
And this is what the code is. Something short, something you are familiar with. Anything that you're familiar with, it's hard to get out of your head things, you know.
The dictionary and code words all had to be memorized during training.
We couldn't be carrying any references out there in battle, so we memorized everything. At that age, I guess we were pretty good at memorizing.
The code talkers took part in every assault the Marines conducted in the Pacific Theater. Their primary job was to transmit messages in code by radio and telephone about troop movements, tactics, and vital battlefield orders. The code talkers were on the front lines when the U.S. troops landed at Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal.
We were with 5th Marine Division, and our job was to invade Iwo Jima, so that's what we did.
That's where we landed February 19, 1945. And it was a rough landing, and we had so many ships. I think we had about 10 or 12 aircraft carriers. Our beach was a mess. Dead Marines, equipment, oh boy. And if the Navy didn't get us in straight to the beach, the thing was that our little boats would start going over. Ours turned over. So I practically had to swim ashore.
A lot of people think code talkers were sitting somewhere in the rear echelon talking radio, but we were out in the front line. That's where the messages have to come from the front line back to the headquarters, and sometimes to the airplanes, sometimes to the ships.
And see, I was with headquarters signal company. I was with a major general all the time. Major general and a brigadier general. And it was about 5 or 6 of us. Since we're in headquarters, that's where we were to transmit messages down the line. And they had Navajo code talkers down the line. We had a lot of work to do. Informations, commands, and they give it to us, and we just go to our radio, translate it in the code. And on the other end, the Navajo code talker receives it, and he translates it back to English and give it to their commanders. And it's so fast. It just took only maybe a minute, while the other code they've been using, they call it American Morse code. If their messages took 15 minutes, ours took 2 minutes. That's how fast it was. And no mistakes. That's the way we were trained. So we did our job that way.
The Navajo code talkers faced a unique hazard. They were sometimes mistaken for the enemy by other American soldiers.
We had the same skin as the Japanese, and probably acted like the same Oriental people. We had guards, Marines guarding us day and night. You know, every place we go, there is a guard that goes with us.
The Japanese were proud of their skill in breaking codes, but they were baffled by the Navajo language.
Who would think that a bunch of sheet herders would develop a code that nobody broke? Japanese didn't break it, the Marines didn't break it. So I always say that there must have been some help from somewhere, spiritual help. And these were all young kids, 17, 18, 19.
The Navajo code was so valuable in winning World War II that it remained a classified secret until 1968.
We were sworn to secrecy when we got discharged. They told us that we might use you again in case, we go back to war.
We were a special group, but we never realized it until after the war was over.
We never knew the magnitude that we contributed to World War II until after 1968, when the code was declassified. We just fought with the Marines, and that's what we did.
Only in recent years have the men who served as Navajo code talkers received the awards and recognition they deserve. At a Marine Corps reunion in 1969, they were presented with a special medallion. In 2001, they finally received the Congressional Medal of Honor. The code talkers are modest about their role.
I always think it was the language. It wasn't us. We just used it. It's the Navajo language that did the work. I always think that it's the language that should be honored.
Between 1942 and 1945, more than 400 Navajos served as code talkers. Today, less than 100 of the Navajo code talkers are still alive. Now in their 70s and 80s, they appear at special events, and they sign some of the many books that have been written about their heroic work in World War II. The Navajo Code Talker Association works to tell the true story of the code talkers and to promote education for future generations of Navajos.
They're always telling them that they should speak their language, they should live their culture. And I tell them that we found that Navajo language was very powerful, very sacred, very beautiful.
The Navajo Code Talkers are part of a long tradition of Native Americans who have proudly served in the U.S. military.
To all the Native American Indians, North America is still our country. That's why we fight for it. We call it our mother country. So when somebody tries to take your mother away, what do? You fight for it. You protect it.
Just like our ancestor tried